Feel like, hi, I'm Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder I was going to say Bookstore Magic. I'm the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze, the book initiative that was begun just when the pandemic did to help independent bookstores whose doors were shuttered, authors whose tours were canceled, readers hungry to see authors and to learn about new books. And we're really excited and thrilled today because today we have Emma Straub. So I'm going to give a handy introduction and then we're going to talk. Emma Straub is the owner of Bookstore Magic, which is one of the coolest bookstores on the planet in Brooklyn. She's also the New York Times bestselling author of a zillion novels, including This Time Tomorrow, which is the #1 bestselling book in indie bookstores for, I think it's the 4th week or 5th week, or it doesn't matter. It's going to keep on going. All Adults Here, The Vacationers, Modern Lovers, Laura Lamont's Life in Pictures, and the short story collection Are the People We Married. Her books have been published in more than 20 languages. All Adults Here is currently in development as a television series. As I said, she and her husband own Bookstore Magic. Okay. This Time Tomorrow is about Alice. She's just turning 40. One of those cusp ages where we reevaluate everything about our lives. She time travels back to her 16th birthday in 1996 New York City, and she's working as an admission officer while caring for her ailing dad. The reviews are phenomenal. The Washington Post calls it a feel-good book to brighten your summer, adding Straub puts her own spin on 13 going on 30 in this stirring time travel novel. NPR raves. Straub has come through with another delightful summer read. The Wall Street Journal calls this novel wonderfully observed. It's Ms. Straub's evocation of the father-daughter relationship that gives this book its considerable emotional heft. Shondaland writes, with his intimate family scenes and moving explorations of love and grief, This Time Tomorrow is often a tearjerker, particularly for anyone who's lost or is in the process of losing a parent. And Caroline Leavitt, the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze, says, this book is really wonderful. It's totally different, at least I feel, from all of Emma's other books. It's a book for anyone who wants to feel deeply moved, to have your heart crushed and then put back again, and even have a shine put on it. It's a wonderful book. So thank you so much, Emma, for being here, and welcome.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. That was so nice. That was so many nice things in a row. It was really, and
They're all true.
I look just a mess. I did not watch.
No, you don't. No, you don't. It's so funny because actually this isn't a bookish question. This is a question I was going to ask later, which is about your personal style. You always look amazing, and you have this really unique personal style that changes, just as I think your books do. When I first knew of you, you had long hair and you had these great frou-frou things that were always in your hair, and they looked amazing, amazing, amazing. And then your hair got chopped off and you started wearing these. Somebody said you look like a crayon. When I saw that, I thought, yes, that's a fabulous evocation. You have this really extraordinary, amazingly interesting style and face. And now let's talk about your books. Okay. So This Time Tomorrow is about so many different things. It's got a palpable love between father and daughter. There's a palpable love for my favorite city in the world, New York City. And of course, time travel. So I wanted to ask you, to me, I always feel like we're always time traveling back and forth all the time in our memories. And I was wondering if you could talk about that. Like, do you feel that? I mean, do you feel like quantum physicists feel that all time is happening at the same time? We just can't access it at the same time. So I wanted you to talk about that. Do you feel like you're living in different time periods?
Yeah, I mean, so I live about a 15-minute walk from my children's school, which is also where I went to school. And so every day I see people who I know as adults, who I also knew as a teenager. And I have different relationships with them now, but I still see them the way I saw them then also. So yeah, I mean, I certainly I certainly feel like I time travel most of the day, every day. I mean, and then, I think that anyone with either children or aging parents who they see on a regular
Right.
basis, um, I feel that way all the time in that way too, where I experience my children, on a daily basis. And then I look at pictures, like just like an hour ago, I was looking at photographs of my younger son from the month that we opened the bookstore, and he was a year old. He was a baby, and now he's about to be in first grade, and
It's
yeah.
strange. It's strange. My baby is 25 now, and I still feel like I'm living with that little human when
Yeah,
he was 5, or when he was 3, and
yeah,
that little human does exist in some place, and
yeah,
there's always that yearning to, "I wish I could tap into that life again as well
yeah,
as this life."
yeah.
So, it's interesting that you talked about, living with aging parents. I always ask writers what was obsessing them or haunting them when they started their books, because it's usually something personal that fuels the
Mhm.
literary fire. I know that your father, the writer Peter Straub, was in the hospital for a long time, and that must have been, I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. And in a way, I felt like your book was this beautiful homage to father daughter love. Was that always the Inception story, or did
Oh,
you
yeah.
discover that? Oh, it was
Oh, yeah.
always the
No, no,
Inception
no. It
story.
was like I think that, sometimes there are personal elements that find their way into a book, and in a sort of subconscious way, where you're writing and you're like, yes, I'm telling the story about these characters, and then at the end you think, oh my gosh, I really have been thinking about that thing that is that thing in my life as well. But with this book, no, it was just full on. That was it from the start, was just me and my dad. And I have no interest in writing memoir. Maybe someday, I don't know. Never say never, I guess. I definitely never thought I would write a time travel novel. Um, so never say never for sure, but I don't think that I will write a memoir, um but I sure enjoyed writing this, which was, is a fictional story. Obviously, it's time travel, um, about a woman who has some things in common with me, and a guy who has some things in common with my dad, and just existing in the world of the book together. It felt really magical. I mean, not to sound sort of too hoogly moogly about it, but I wrote it in 2020, and so I was obviously experiencing what we were all experiencing, which was,
Right.
get me out of here. This is bad. This is bad. I don't like this. I don't like this situation. So, certainly, like a lot of the, like, sort of yearning for New York City
Yeah.
that's in the book came out of that. Like, I mean, I can see Manhattan from my window, but I sure couldn't go there.
Right. Right.
And even if I had gone there, I wouldn't have gone to the version of it that I find the most, like, safe and comforting, which is the version of it from my childhood. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Right. I sort of feel that all the pages of your book were in a way whispering to me, pay attention to every moment, because every moment matters until the moments are gone. And that profoundly impacted me. I mean, when I finished your book, I sat with it against my chest, thinking, remember this feeling. I wanted to know if you felt that, and if you talked about how writing this book changed you personally.
Yeah. I mean, it did. It was, I should say, I love all my books. I love them all. I don't necessarily love them all exactly equally, because they're different. And, I wrote them all at different moments in my life, but this book really stands alone to
I
me.
think it does too. I think it does
Yeah,
too.
like it means so much to me. It means so much to me, and it the writing experience was so different. I mean, for so many reasons, not just because it was such a personal story, but also because it was the pandemic and I hadn't been able to work. Um, I hadn't been able to write for 6 months because I hadn't had childcare for 6 months, and
Oh my God.
I was at home with my 4-year-old and 6-year-old every day while my husband was at our bookstore shipping out books for 12 hours a day. And it was horrible. It was horrible. And I love my job, and so I was so happy to be writing again too. And I just was like, I was just going 1,000 miles an hour with this book. Like, I couldn't even tell you, like, so funny. Like with most of my other books, like, I make outlines and I, and then the outline changes and I sort of rethink it and I have people read, like usually my books, there's more planning and like structuring. And this one, I mean, this sounds deranged maybe, but like I couldn't even tell you if I did that or not. I couldn't even tell you. Like I understood what the basic shape was when I started. Like I knew the basics. And then I just set off running.
I love that. I love hearing that because actually my next question is actually about process because this book is so different, at least it was to me. You've had this incredible career that you've talked about and written about with honesty and humor. And I actually was struck by this. I'm not sure where it was, but it was an interview with you and Mike, your husband, where he said that one of the first things you said to him when he first met you, when you were working at Algonquin, was, I'm going to be a novelist. And he said you said it with such determination and you never wavered. And I thought, wow. Because for me, it was always when people said, well, what are you going to do? I was always, be a novelist with a
Yeah.
question mark. So I wanted to know, are you a person who never wavers, or do you have like these basket case moments as your career progressed
Oh,
where you thought like, what am I going to do if this book doesn't succeed? Am I going to have to go, go to dental school or whatever? It sounds like you did not have those moments writing This Time Tomorrow.
yeah. Yeah.
Did you have those moments writing the other books? And do you suspect that you might have those moments in your next book, or do you now feel like you're in new territory now, and whatever you write next is going to be something different?
I don't know. I mean, those are all very, very, very good questions, Caroline. I mean, I think as a writer, I have never felt, if this doesn't work, I'm going to dental school. I have always been, sorry. I have always been delusionally self-confident, I would say, as
That's
a writer,
wonderful.
which has served me very well, and I recommend it highly to others. Absolute delusional self-confidence can really go a long way. And but I to answer your question, like I do feel like this book did something to me that I where like I am going to, because it was the first time that I've written something so personal, and the feeling of writing it was so satisfying, and it's been so satisfying. That's a hilarious quote. It's been so satisfying to hear from readers, how this book has connected with them, that like I do feel like, oh gosh, like how do I do that again? How do I do that again? How do I make sure that that there's as much of me and as much of my heart in every book as there is in this one, even if the story isn't autobiographical. But I will say the dental school moments come to me way more often at the bookstore because, running a bookstore is so much harder than being a novelist. It is for me, maybe not for everyone.
Why? Why?
Well, because here I am with all of my here's my employee at home, right?
Oh, I love your employee.
Like she when she's upset, she just walks away. And I don't have to worry about her, and I don't have to worry about anything. Like a writer is so solitary, and I only have to deal with myself and my editor and my publicist, and it's all very self-contained, and therefore very easy for someone like me who, as previously discussed, has delusional self-confidence and is very self-motivated. Like I am good at getting my work done. At the bookstore, though, we have, I think now 14 employees.
Wow.
And I mean, it's a small bookstore. But we are really, really busy. We are a very high volume bookstore. I don't know this for sure, but I think that we're one of the busiest bookstores in New York City after the Strand.
Here's what I found.
Oh my God. The best bookstores in New York City. We better be on there.
Well, I think it's a community feeling place.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a hangout
It
place.
is
every time I've been there.
and it is really busy, and we have tons of events, and we have tons of stuff going on all the time, and we have an incredible staff, absolutely incredible. And Mike and I came into the bookstore, opened the bookstore with no experience at all managing other people. And that has been the thing
Right.
that I have had to learn, and I have made so many mistakes, and we have gotten so much better. And I think that like now I can say with confidence that I think we are really, really good bosses. But it's definitely not something that came naturally or immediately. And so those are the moments where I feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? Because I'm so used to feeling total confidence. And I don't always feel total confidence in that realm. So that is my deadly honest answer.
I love that. Can you time travel into the future for us and tell us what your life looks like in 10 years?
Oh man. Okay, here's what I want. Okay, 10 years, 2032. I'll be 52 years old. It'll be summertime. Oh my God. Okay, so wait, in 10 years, I'm gonna have in 10 years, I'm gonna have an 18-year-old
Oh my
and
God.
a 16-year-old. So I mean, in 10 years, my older son will have just graduated from high school. Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh my God. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that. I really hope that I'm like in a dress that is this loose, sitting next to a swimming pool with a book and some iced tea and a cat nearby. That's all I want.
That's lovely. That's lovely. So I want to know, everybody has depths and everybody has like a public persona. A lot of your public persona that a lot of people believe, which of course is probably not true, is that you have this charmed life. You have this, everything like from like you have this amazing house and it's in architectural magazines and it had that zebra wallpaper. And then you're like the style icon where, I mean, this is the highest compliment. Nobody looks like you. You
Oh,
have this
oh,
amazing,
you're so nice to me. I'm a mess. I'm an
no, you're not. No, you're not. You're really not. You're really not. You have this extraordinary beauty and this extraordinary thing around you. And also your career seems extraordinary, where it's like every book just goes up, 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 up. But I know as a writer, surely there must be some rejection stories in your life that you would like to share with us.
Of course. Okay, so when I was in my 20s, so right after I told my, then boyfriend that I was a novelist, I wrote 4 novels in my 20s that got rejected everywhere. Everywhere,
Really?
everywhere, everywhere. I mean, hundreds of rejection. Every editor
Wow.
you've ever met in your life, including the 2 editors who I have had at Riverhead, everyone rejected these books. Everyone. Um, and I didn't care. I mean, honestly, I didn't care. I was like, okay, they don't want that one. I'll write another one. That was just
That is
that was,
great advice. That is really great advice. Mark Cecil, our producer, put that up in a banner. That's wonderful. No, it is. It's great advice for every writer, because I know so many writers who they get rejections and they feel that's it.
yeah.
That's it. I love that. That is really how did you come about having that attitude? Did you always have it? Is that something your
Um,
parents taught
I mean,
you?
I think that part of it certainly comes um from having a dad who was who is a novelist and who had published lots and lots of books at certain by that point. And I watched him publish books, and I understood that, like, there were always more. There were always more. Like, I think that there are some people who are like Donna Tartt, who write one book every 10 years. But I knew that was never what I envisioned for myself. Like, I'm a ham and an extrovert, and I like publishing. Like, I always knew that like I would be um I don't know, prolific. Like, that was always my vision for myself, was that not only would I be a novelist, but that I would be a prolific novelist. And that I would write as many books as I could. And so I don't know. I mean, I guess I understood, and I don't know how I understood this really, because it's not the way my dad's career went. He wrote one book and sent it to one publisher, and they were like, okay, and published it.
Wow.
Terrible. It's a terrible story. Um, but I guess I always understood, and I certainly understand this so much more now, that timing is everything, and you only ever need one person to say yes. You
Right.
only need one agent to say yes, and you only need one editor to say yes. um and that is all timing. There are so many great books that don't find publishers, and
That's right.
there are so many terrible books
That
that
do.
do.
I know.
And it's not, and like, there are books that sell millions of copies that are terrible, and there are books that are amazing that sell 5,000 copies. Like, it's not there's no inherent value, like, communicated by those metrics. So I think I always knew that, like, I was going to do what I was going to do, and I wasn't going to be dissuaded by the timing not being right.
I love that. That's a great attitude. Can you talk a little bit more about your dad? Since this time tomorrow is it's a love letter to him.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a 19-part question. How did your dad influence you as far as being a writer? What lessons did you learn from him about writing and about being a writer? And how are you alike and how are you different?
Okay. Oh my god, that was only like 4 parts, but
Right, yeah, but the more parts will come up.
um all right. So what did I learn from him? I mean, I think the most important thing that I learned from him was like we all learn, especially from our parents, obviously far more by what our parents actually model for us than by
Right.
what they say to us. And what my dad modeled for me was the hardworking, extremely consistent, very dedicated life of a novelist. He was always around. He was very present in my life. He was at home. He was dressed in a suit most of the time,
Really?
which is
Wow.
he's not anymore, but certainly like in the 80s and 90s, oh, he was living high on the hog. He was looking good. And this is Honey Butter. She also loves
Oh,
my dad.
she's wonderful.
Um, but yeah, so I think that's really what I absorbed from him the most. That I think a lot of people it takes a lot of people a long time to learn, which is that being a writer, if you're lucky enough to have it be your only job, um, you have to treat it as such, and you have to
Right.
go to your desk and write for hours and hours and hours, whether you feel like you're having a good writing day or not.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so that was clear to me that was how you did it. You have to actually put in the work. And then both of my parents read all the time.
Right.
They
That's
they
important.
it's the most it's the most important. I mean, every now and then, I don't know if you ever get these emails, Caroline, but like every now and then I'll get a weird email from like a 20-year-old boy who's like, I'm going to be a novelist. I have like my favorite book is The Catcher in the Rye or whatever. And it's like, no, like people, you have to read, you have to actually read all the time in order to be
Yeah.
a writer. You can't just have read what you were assigned in high school. You have to read all the time. And I grew up in a house that was filled with books, and I understood that was part of the deal. Oh no, what do you have? Hold on one second. Bad little pussy cat.
We pause for 2 seconds.
Oh my gosh, Honey Butter.
Okay.
Honey Butter stole this priceless.
Oh, I love it.
I'll put it on. Yeah, sorry. So wait, what were the other two parts? What were the other two
What
parts?
lesson? Wait, we talked about what lessons you learned from writing and about being a writer. Yeah, how are you different from your dad?
Oh, well, I mean, when I wrote Laura Lamont, which was my first novel, which came out in 2012. I wrote him, and I was like, Dad, you're gonna be so proud of me. I've killed off so many people. And he said to me, quite rightly, he said, Emma, did you kill them off, or are they just dying?
Oh, that's so
He was
interesting.
right. He was right.
That's a
A
great
lot of
quote.
characters died, but I hadn't actually killed them. So yeah, I mean, his books are much scarier than mine. They're much darker. So that's one major difference. I don't know how much reader crossover we have. Although I think that if there's any book that readers of my dad that readers of my dad's would enjoy, it would certainly be this one, This Time Tomorrow. But yeah,
Well,
we both, I think we get along very well. We love to joke. We love to joke. We have a very entertaining relationship. Yeah, and I mean, certainly at this point, I think we feel just mutually proud and supportive of each other, and it's great.
I want to say for all of us with dysfunctional families, we really admire that. I know too, there's something really wonderful about the fact that your parents moved from Manhattan to Brooklyn to be closer to you and to your kids, which to
Yeah.
me is like that's the rainbow. That's the jackpot. That's
Yeah.
totally lovely. So
Yeah.
we have a question from Mindy Ehrlich. Where did you grow up, Emma? And I would like to add to that question. Tell us what it was like when you were
Yeah.
growing up.
Sure. So I grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which is where this book takes place. My parents and my brother and I lived on 85th Street between Central Park West and Columbus. And this book really, it's full of
It is.
all of the places I loved. All of the places I loved. You've got Jackson Hole hamburgers. You've got Gray's Papaya hot dogs. You've got pizza. You've got diners. You've got coffee shops. You've got everything. It's really like my life and food is this book, pretty much. I loved it. I loved being a city kid. I didn't learn how to drive until I was in college. And even now, am I a great driver? No, I drive very slowly because I learned to drive in New York City.
I don't know how to drive.
Yeah,
Never got my license. You don't have to
relatable.
here.
You
don't
don't
need to
have
here.
to. That's relatable. It's like, yeah. But yeah, I loved growing up in New York City. I always felt really lucky.
It is.
Really lucky.
It's a wonderful place. I want to talk about your character's job as an admission officer at a private school, because one of my favorite documentaries is this documentary called Nursery University, which is about getting your child into nursery schools in New York and how hard it is and how people will hire people for $750 an hour to coach their
Yeah.
kids about getting into a school and how fraud it is. And I felt that you captured that whole thing so perfectly, just so perfectly. So I mean, it's been a long time, and what people don't understand, which I think you did capture, is that people who live around New York City or in a city, getting your kid to a nursery school, and the right nursery school, is very different. It's as hard as getting into college and as terrible. So I wanted to know, I forgot what my question was about this. I guess I just wanted to know, like, did you do more research and what was that like in terms of admission officing?
I did.
No.
I mean, I talked to. I mean, I know some people who don't work in the admissions office, but who work sort of in the development office at the school that I went to and that my children go to. But yeah, I just decided that I decided that I knew enough and that I could make it up. Having been on the other side of it, I mean, I went to private school and my kids go to private school. So I feel like I know it well enough. And yeah, it's intense. And it's gotten so much worse.
Oh yeah. Wait until high school.
Oh, yeah.
My son is an actor, so for high school we had to have portfolio videos, monologue videos, singing videos. It was worse in college.
Yeah.
It was worse in college. Okay, so I want to ask you, if you were not a novelist and a bookstore owner, a wife and mother, what would your life look like?
I don't know. God, it sounds quiet.
All right, let me rephrase it. What has being a bookstore owner, a wife and mother, taught you about writing and living your life? What are the important lessons that you can take with you time traveling into the future?
I mean, everything, but I think that, like, my answers would be different from someone else's. Like, it's certainly not that one has to be in a marriage or be a parent or own a small business or whatever. It's just that those are the things that have made up my life that then I get to obsess about and worry about and stress about and synthesize. I think that's why I love reading fiction, because I know that we're all doing that. We're all doing that with our own materials. It's
right.
not, I mean, God knows I certainly don't always want to read books written by people who have had lives just like me. God, that would be so deadly boring. Those are all the books I want to read the least.
Mindy asked we have another question, which was, which bookstore does Emma own? Books Are Magic in Brooklyn. You want to go there. It's a wonderful, wonderful bookstore. We have another question. What is Emma reading?
Right now, I'm reading a galley of the new Elizabeth McCracken novel that will be out in the fall. It is called The Heroine of This Book, I believe.
Okay, I actually have another question for you, which is you're also known as an incredibly supportive person for writers as well as for readers. Um, I just, I think that's so important to be a good literary citizen,
Mhm.
which you are. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's the kind of thing that I just am getting better, and I mean, it's always been important to me, but it's something that I'm getting better at and better at the older I get. Which is that there is room enough for all of us. There is there's no like set number of writers who can or should or will succeed. And whatever I can do to help other writers find their readers, I take as part of my job and mission in life. I mean, I just, I mean, that's part of the reason we have a bookstore is that
Right,
um,
right.
is that I've always felt that way. Is that I'm not just thinking about myself. I mean, certainly, of course, I do think about my own career as a writer, but um, but there are so many wonderful books that are published every week, um,
Yeah, it's a
and
lot.
and it's my absolute pleasure to share them with as many people as possible.
I actually have a few more questions. How do you decide what books should be in your bookstore?
Well, I have meetings with sales reps, and we talk about them. I mean, sometimes it's like this morning I um, did my Penguin fall order, and it's like, am I going to order many cases of the new Celeste Ng novel? Yes, I am, obviously, because
Right.
we're going to sell
It's a
those.
great book. It's a great book, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like that sort of thing is not that's not hard because I know that
Right.
she's got lots of readers. But yeah, I mean, it can be tricky. It can be tricky to think about what to bring in.
Because it's a business as well as,
Yeah,
a haven for readers.
yeah, and
Well,
so we can't. I mean, and we're small. We are a small bookstore, and so
it's funny. I always think of it as a big bookstore. When I walk in, it
we're
feels like a big bookstore.
we're about 1,800 square feet, and about
Wow.
half of that is kids. Um, I had so much fun in San Antonio. I had so much fun in San Antonio. Um, so it's small. It's small, and obviously, like we need to have room for new books and
Right.
old books, and yeah, that's the hardest part. And I think that it's also always changing. It's changing every day what we have in stock because for most backlist things we'll have one copy, and so like someone will buy it, and then maybe we don't bring it back in right away, and there's room for something else.
Right. Right. This is a question. This is actually my last question. And I always ask this. What's obsessing you now and why?
What is obsessing me now? My babysitter has been um, away for a few weeks.
Oh,
So what's obsessing me now is like time management. Okay, so I was at the bookstore this morning, and I had a meeting at this morning, and then I have this, and then I have to get to summer camp pickup, and it's like it's really I'm a girl on the go, Caroline. I'm a girl on.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. We have lots of comments in the chat, which weren't questions, but they were comments, so you can look at them, Emma. I want to urge everybody, bookshop.org. This time tomorrow, Books Are Magic in Brooklyn. Any of your favorite bookstore. Oh, my friend Gina Sorrell is here. Said she very much enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much. I want to give a plug for Gina's book, The Wise Women, which is just out.
Yeah.
And I also want to especially thank our producer, Mark Cecil, who actually just sold his novel to Knopf. He's going to tell me not to tell him, not to say that out loud, but I have to because we're all so proud of him. And I want to especially thank Emma for all these years of pleasure with both your books and just with running into you and your style and your fashion sense and everything else. Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Emma. And thank you, Mark. We'll see you. Oh, also, this is going to live forever on our YouTube station, so you can watch it a million times if you want. And we hope that you do. Thank you, everybody. Bye. See you next